Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us for My Week. I'm Christy McDonald. We have a lot to get to tonight. It's budget time. We'll take a look at where the money is going in Michigan. Plus, the 2014 race is on. You have seen the ads for Governor Snyder and opponent Mark Schauer. Hear why one group flagged both ads for a little bit of exaggeration. Also, regional cooperation is great when you can agree on things. And right now, there is no agreement about Detroit's water department. And a big land deal for the new hockey arena and entertainment district downtown. So why are some city council members not so happy with it? Well, we start tonight first with the budget deal that Governor Snyder is proposing. There is a big focus on boosting education funding, specifically just over a 6% increase for public universities and over a 3% increase for K12 and community colleges. There is also money for early childhood education, but there isn't an across-the-board income tax cuts like many legislators wanted. Let's take a look at the details tonight with our My Week contributors, Nolan Finley. He is the editorial page editor of the Detroit News, and Stephen Henderson, the editorial page editor of the Detroit Free Press. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey, you.
Budget week.
Hey, you. It's budget week, and it is very exciting. Don't glaze over just because we said budget and numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I'm going to wake you back up again because this is really, when we hear the governor's State of the State address, we're really waiting for this week when we hear actually the number and the dollar amounts that he attaches to everything. So, and he really made a big focus of education, Nolan.
Yeah, he did. And, there's been a lot of pressure, particularly for higher education spending from the business community. There was disinvestment in higher ed when the state was struggling, and there's some thought, I think it's reasonable, that there should be some of that money should come back. 6% is a pretty sizable increase, and he tied it to holding tuition down, which I think is essential. You can't let these universities get away with saying, well, we're raising tuition because of declining state support, and then go ahead and raise tuition when state support increases. So I think it was a pretty good. It's a pretty good amount.
And this is the largest increase that we've had in over 10 years or so. So, Stephen, what does this really mean for kids who are going to be heading to college in the next couple of years?
Well, I'm not sure it means much for kids heading to college because tuition rates still go up every year. The universities have become accustomed to, I think they feel it's their duty to raise tuition every year. And part of that is because of the decline in state funding. I think this is an important reversal. This is a pretty important statement the governor is making that, look, we're going to go back the other direction, but it's not nearly enough to make up for the disinvestment we had, but also the comparative gap that's grown between Michigan and other states that are doing much better. You look at places like North Carolina, places like Texas, even.
So then, what can we do to catch up, or is this just the beginning process of trying to catch up?
You do have to put a lot more money into higher ed, and I don't think it has to be, no strings attached, just take it and do what you want. You can put conditions on it and get the universities to tighten up their operations. And
that's key because the universities are probably the last bastions of government institutions in terms of coming into economic realities and the necessity to do efficiencies and to change operating procedures. They've tinkered around the edges, but they still are among the most wasteful institutions left in government.
See, that's the word I guess I would disagree with. I'm not sure they're wasteful. They are inefficient, but we get a very big bang for our buck. Our education buck in Michigan. You think about how prestigious our universities and colleges are. That's because they're doing the job they're supposed to do.
Yeah, but not all of them, Stephen. Most states have a university system. We're one of the few states where each one of these universities is autonomous, and they each can, they can each start a medical school if they want a medical school, and there's not a whole lot of synergy in that system. And I think if they were working together more closely, we could have a more efficient.
But if you proposed a university system, you'd lose the University of Michigan almost entirely. It would almost certainly want to go private.
The University of North Carolina is
no. I'm just saying the switch here would not go well with the regents at the university or with the administration.
Well, let me jump back though to what the impact is going to have on students, because isn't that really the bottom line, that we're supposed to be helping these kids who are trying to get into college and afford to pay for it, so we can have this higher educated workforce in the state of Michigan. So hang on one second.
Yeah.
So if 6% an increase doesn't do anything, when I asked you, what is this going to mean for kids who are going to school in the next couple of years, when is it going to make an impact for kids in the next couple of years?
If it holds tuition down below 3.2%,
That's what
is what the governor asked for. If it does that, that's certainly better than the pace they were on.
Better than nothing.
Well, it's better than a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9%. I mean, I had one of the smaller university presidents in my office one time defending his tuition hike because if he didn't raise tuition, he was going to have the lowest tuition among the 15 universities, and people would assume his university wasn't as good.
Prestigious.
That's the mindset you're dealing with.
Yeah,
Nobody's thinking about the impact on students and their
But
families.
here's the other thing. Michigan is a wealthy enough state that we could actually afford to pay for college tuition for everybody who goes. Now you can debate about whether that's a good idea or whether there should be a different way of doing that. But I guess that makes it clear to me that there is no reason for kids to be carrying the kind of debt that they are. I mean, there's some middle ground between giving someone a free college education and saddling somebody with lifelong debt as a result of their college education. And we are at that bad end of that scale. I think we ought to move back toward it.
You want to see this cost of education skyrocket, make it free.
Well, but if you put conditions on the universities like you're talking about, then you don't let it, the tuition doesn't just skyrocket.
All right, let's jump real quick to K12 funding, because that has been a big issue, and it's really also a big political issue. And when we talk about the gubernatorial campaign, we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But the governor is proposing a boost that will end up being about $83 to $110 per pupil raise for the next year. Is that sufficient enough to quiet the critics?
Well, I mean, that's the start of it. Then he also is continuing to help pay down their legacy costs, which you have a whole lot of people.
$270 million, he said, for long-term liabilities, which is a huge
amount, and it's the right
this.
thing to do, because we don't want these school districts to end up like the city of Detroit and other places that have allowed their legacy costs to push them into insolvency.
And while that is one thing, people will also differentiate, Stephen, though. We want to look at what the dollars are going for the actual inside the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, it's two different tracks, and you got to take care of both of them. I mean, you have this huge pension underfunding problem at the state level among school districts and other state workers. And the governor, one of the most important things this governor has done is start attacking that and really starting to pay that down. And that's going to pay off for us in the long run. In the shorter run, you do have to put more money into classrooms. I mean, we are again, the comparative gap that's grown between us and other states, particularly other states that are performing much better. You look at Northeast states like Maryland, Massachusetts, look at what they spend per pupil and look at what we spend per pupil. Look at the results there, look at the results here.
And when you compare the cost of living in those states, we're still a leading state in education spending. We're still not spending our education dollars as wisely as we should.
That's true, too.
We still haven't implemented a number of the reforms we've been talking about in terms of measuring results and accountability and what have you. It's not just money.
Why do you think that's an either or? Like,
I don't
why?
think it's an either or.
It's a both
but
and,
I think
right?
they should go hand in hand, and they haven't. I think putting $100 back per pupil is a pretty good increase from a governor who said, hey, I'm not going to do foundation grant increases until you all get your finances in order and start using your dollars more efficiently. I think this was a pretty good pop for them.
All right, I want to also talk about, he wants to put $120 million in the rainy day fund, $122 million for the Medicaid expansion in the next couple of years to cover that. And then he wants to, he's not talking about that across the board tax cut that a lot of Republican legislators were like, yes, let's do that this year. He held off on that, Nolan.
Yeah, as he should. I mean, across the board tax cut would net, about $25, $30 a resident in the state. I mean, there's not enough money there to do a significant tax cut when you still have roads in the condition our roads are in, and an unwillingness by the legislature to take up any sort of funding stream for roads and bridges. When you still have higher ed not quite where it should be in terms of funding, you don't really have a surplus. And I think an across the board tax hike would have been foolish and insignificant. And the legislators are going to push for that, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. This plan he put in place to restore some of the homestead tax credit probably makes sense. It comes down to about $100.
Not that much either.
It's not that much.
But he raised the limit, so people making $60,000 and less.
That's to take away a Democratic talking point. that he cut, that he raised taxes on working people, working families. That's strictly a political move, fit into his reelection campaign.
Is he going to end up in a little bit of a skirmish, though, with his Republican counterparts, though, over this?
Over the income tax?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, they want that to take home to their districts in the fall and say, look, I cut your taxes. Any politician wants that. But it's bad policy. It builds a cost into the budget going forward that we can't necessarily guarantee that we're going to be able to pay for it. You don't do that on the basis of a surplus, and the Republicans who are talking about this, they know that, and if it were a Democratic governor, they'd be saying something different. So,
well, Democrats
I think,
are also pushing for a greater tax cut.
Sure, they are in the legislature.
I mean, here's the bottom: you got $1 billion surplus and $10 billion worth of ideas for spending it. And,
well, everybody's got an idea. Come on. Okay, one thing before we leave the budget. See, and hasn't this been a fun conversation about the budget? One thing I want to say is that he did increase by 3% revenue sharing for cities, and this is something that we have talked about, and you specifically, Stephen, have brought up almost every show, and talking about municipal finance and the problems that a lot of other cities are in, not just Detroit, in terms of covering their lawn.
Yeah, I mean, and 3% going into revenue sharing is not going to address
it's not
problem,
a huge amount,
particularly
but it's
when you've got cities who are still recovering from the crash in terms of the real estate values in their communities, and you've got this personal property tax repeal on the horizon that takes a lot of money out of particularly small communities. When you think of someplace like Wayne, Michigan, which is entirely dependent on the Ford plant that's there and the taxes the personal property taxes that are paid, how are they going to get by? I think we've got to get the governor and the legislature focused on that issue, and a 3% raise to revenue sharing is nice, but it doesn't come close to addressing that.
Nolan, does this show, though, that the governor's starting to focus on this issue by having this increase?
It shows that when you have good government producing more revenues, more efficient government, everybody's going to share in the benefits from it. Will this turn things around for these communities? No. But you have to remember, you still have a lot of these communities engaged in inefficient practices, duplicative services. A lot of these small towns who have resisted consolidation, they could do more to help themselves, and they haven't done it.
All right. Well, we'll have to leave it there for the budget and see how the legislature plays out with this over the next couple of months.